On a scale of ITV pundit to ex-All Black looking for a contract, my knowledge and interest in the top 14 probably ranks about a 6. I only casually follow the league because when I do, I feel like I generally know what to expect. 25 tries from Mauls, 26 former Springboks, and by the end of the match probably only 27 players left on the pitch. So, when I looked at the table midway through last season expecting the same old, I was instead amazed to discover that top of the tree was some team called La Rochelle, a side I'd previously only paid attention to because their club's moniker fitted perfectly with my ongoing quest to complete a 15 of players with girls' names. 3 years ago, La Rochelle were playing in the French 2nd Division, the Pro D, a league sponsored by a kitchenware shop. Last year, La Rochelle finished top of the top 14, the richest league in the world, and only narrowly missed out on the title after losing a playoff. Despite having one of the lowest budgets in the competition, they were topping a championship with a bigger collection of stars than Mario, and this year made the kind of immediate impact in Europe normally only found in David Davis' wet dreams. To put La Rochelle's achievements into context, they've essentially done in 3 seasons what Exeter did in 9. It's an underdog story that'd be no less likely if their pack were actual dogs. So, who are La Rochelle? Where did they come from? And how the hell have they managed all this? Let's start in 2012-13. This was the season in which Toulon, backed by Mouad Bougerol, kind of human version of Crazy Frog with a bottomless bank account, won their first Champions Cup, and it felt like rugby in Europe was sinking into a kind of money fixation that would make Scrooge McDuck blush and ABBA demand royalties. Other sides started to take note, and suddenly it seemed like every team in France and Bristol had a sugar daddy keeping them plugged with good food, fine wine, and former All Blacks. La Rochelle, however, didn't. Their recruitment budget was about €40 2 baguettes and the vague promise that the weather would be better than it will be in Coventry or Bristol. However, instead of following the same star-hungry approach and blowing their budget on big boy Lionel, La Rochelle decided to think outside the boxies. There's a story about how the coconut gag in Monty Python and the Holy Grail only came about because they couldn't afford real horses. La Rochelle were the kind of rugby equivalent. Because they lacked the budget to do what they wanted, they found an ingenious way around it that worked out so much better. With other French clubs suddenly able to buy flashy foreign fruits, they started to ignore their own homegrown produce. This left all the academies in the top 14 hemorrhaging young, talented French players, unable to get game time to let them prove themselves or contracts to let them continue buying garlic and art or whatever it is French people do with money. La Rochelle saw this, and they struck. Over the course of 2 seasons, they signed 23 players from other French clubs' academies, targeting guys whose path to top-flight rugby was being blocked by an import likely with an end-rise inflection. Without having to pay all that much, they assembled a squad of immense potential, all with a drive to perform for the club that had given them a shot when no one else believed in them. So, fast forward to the current day. And this tactic has paid off big time. More than half of their current squad joined them in either 2012 or 13, and 11 of those 23 have gone on to play international rugby themselves. For me, the most notable among these was Kevin Gordon, brought in from the Clermont Academy, who in my book is amongst the most underrated players in the world. His influence on the La Rochelle team is remarkable. He's the closest thing France probably has right now to a Dusautoir figure, in as much as he's someone who's good at every facet of the game and works harder than a German donkey in a 24-hour office. And even once they could afford a star or two, they continued to recruit smartly. Instead of just signing any bastard with test caps, they signed players who they needed, who were willing to buy into the club's mentality. With 33 All Blacks caps under his belt, it would have been very easy for Victor Vito to find a side in France that just would have given him a huge wedge in exchange for 3 games a season and a token appearance at the kit launch. Instead, however, he's put in over 50 appearances in La Rochelle in less than 2 seasons and continues to work as hard in each fixture as he did for the All Blacks. They signed him for the reasons he won his caps rather than just because he had them. On the other end of the scale, Ryan Lamb has seen more clubs than a retired caddy, but La Rochelle needed a solid, well-rounded game manager, and they knew there was no point filtering Lamb out just because he's never played in the World Cup. He's been an inspired signing, looking so mature they should probably start calling him Ryan Sheep. As with most things that have gone right with La Rochelle, this recruitment strategy was the brainchild of the side's dual coaches, Angry Baby, Patrice Colazzo, and Xavier Garboja, who looks a bit like the token handsome guy from the cast of a sitcom. One prop and one winger, the pair have a kind of odd couple relationship that's led to them devising a really interesting, unique, and well-rounded style of play. At a most basic level, what La Rochelle look to do is to play expansive rugby in compact areas. It's maybe only the second ever oxymoronic game plan in the history of rugby after a Rob Howley attack, and it's a contradiction in terms that's very hard to defend. Essentially, La Rochelle flood one section of the field with players, leaving defenders in that section with no idea who they're going to have to tackle. 50% of the tries they've scored this season have come off first phase, thanks in part to this structure making it very hard for a backline to man mark, unable to decide whether they bring in additional defenders tight or stick to their usual patterns. Look at the utter chaos this caused Marcus Smith here, who's struggling to work out who to watch like Glastonbury, put all the headlines on at once. It looks like it's just a fly half attempting to tackle, but it's actually a deliberate product of the doubt La Rochelle put in his mind. By putting 6 players in the space a team would only use 3 to defend, it allows them to create kind of pseudo-overlap in the middle rather than on the edge of the defensive line. However, if opposition players are drawn into mark-up, La Rochelle then have the wherewithal to exploit the less pseudo-overlap on the actual edge. The flooding structure also enables my favourite part of La Rochelle's game: their phenomenal support lines. Good support lines do funny things to me, so just know for the entire time I spent editing this next section, I had an erection. Because they have so many players in close proximity, they always have options for the pass and the offload. The moment the break is made, all players, regardless of shirt number, set off looking to get in position to support. However, they don't just aim to get in proximity, look at the way they find space and hold their depth. Because of the relative difficulty of throwing a pass at high speed, a good support line off a break should be slightly deeper than normal, as it gives the support player time to drift onto a pass that will never be pinpoint accurate. An ideal support line is also, unlike Israel for Lau, straight, so there's no drifting across the pitch, giving the ball carrier a better chance to aim. Chris Ashton's entire career is a mark of just how important someone who knows how to support the ball carrier can be. It's about finding space away from the defenders, but close to your teammate. So it's one thing to see a winger like Toulouse Academy boy Gabriel Lacroix get into these positions, but La Rochelle's second rows and hookers run better support lines than England or Wales as wingers. When trying to build an attacking game, most sides look to improve their players' skills, but Colozzo and Garboja have instead worked to develop the players' instincts, trying to create a team of all-round rugby players. Support lines like this transform half breaks into breaks, breaks into tries, tries into wins, wins into promotion, promotion to league survival into league topping, and league topping into videos like this. Keeping the players so tight together also helps keep their ball retention very high. Nobody's ever far from a teammate to clear out, so there isn't the danger of losing the ball in contact. As such, La Rochelle only kick as a last resort. In their November win over Clermont, they didn't kick for territory until the 63rd minute. Instead, when they found themselves with the ball inside their own 22 against the defending champions, they opted right from the first minute to do this. Because they can. And if you could do this, you would. It's like the splits or punching Austin Healey. However, the key difference between them and the other outstanding running team in European rugby right now, the Scarlets, is the source of their attack. Whereas the Scarlets got most of their tries off turnover and kick return, taking advantage of an already broken field, La Rochelle looked to break it themselves using their outstanding set piece. La Rochelle are very French in the way that they approach the scrum and line out as a weapon. Their maul is a source of many a try, and their scrum is bolstered by Untitled, who is, and this is a fact, bigger than the average silverback gorilla. I'll say that again. Their tight head, Untitled, is bigger than a silverback gorilla. Frankly, it'd been an achievement to lose a scrum with someone bigger than a silverback gorilla lining up for you. La Rochelle also have a kind of ape troop mentality in defence, because they all fight for each other and they're motivated by bananas, or garlic, or whatever it is the French like. You can always tell how tight a team is as a group by how they defend, and La Rochelle show a genuine team spirit without the ball. The defensive structure is built around individual tackles rather than shutting down an attack systematically, and for this to pay off, you really need every player in the side to be up for tackling, which is a real challenge when two of them will always be wingers. However, La Rochelle have managed to build a spirit that can't be underestimated, and it's a large factor in how they rose to the top. In fact, the spirit spreads beyond the team itself and into the town. Like Clermont, La Rochelle is a rugby town. Having grown up in a city in which the word rugby makes people think of the M1 before the sport, I've always found the thought of a place that revolves around rugby a kind of magical fairy tale. But La Rochelle regularly drew crowds of 14,000 whilst in the second division. Their average attendance at the moment is equal to 97% of the stadium seats and 21% of the town's population. It also has a lovely climate and more gay clubs per person than any other town in France. So we know Bastra will be welcomed warmly next time Toulon have a game. They might be having a slightly rougher season this year in the top 14, but as someone whose proudest achievement is not quite finishing a girls' name 15, what La Rochelle have accomplished is remarkable. They've built a club to success on innovation and spirit alone, and that is something that deserves to be recognised by more than just cash-strapped Kiwis. It's just occurred to me that these little monologues at the end of these videos are the most anyone sees of my face for a month, so maybe I should stop doing them when I'm bleary-eyed, having just spent 12 straight hours staring at that screen trying to edit the video you just watched, and I should maybe check my hair in advance, but there we go, never mind. Thank you very much for sitting through that. Thank you very much for watching that. I realise it wasn't the most in-demand topic in the world, but it's something I thought was interesting, and hopefully a few of you found it interesting. I also want to thank 4 people in particular, because I have just started a Patreon page. I've just started a page if anyone just wants to support the channel, anyone just wants to sort of chuck
a few pennies my way, even if it is just a few pennies, I'd really appreciate that. I explain and go into sort of more detail on that. There's all kinds of little incentives, there's little bonus videos. I'm going to send out monthly Israel for Loud fan fiction if anyone's into that. I am. Otherwise, yeah, thank you very much to the first 4 people that have patroned me on the back. You just have to post it on Twitter. And they have 4 people who've been very supportive on Twitter as well, so that's been very much appreciated. Seb McLaughlin, who was the first guy to Patreon to drop money my way, to chuck some at me, thank you very much. Zachary Finch, John McDonnell, and then Lars, who has a German surname with vowels all over the place, so I don't want to try and butcher that. But thank you very much, guys. I really, really appreciate you chucking money at me, and anyone else that does. Please, I'm not going to beg, I'm not going to grovel, I'm not going to say that. I think better of it. So I'll leave it up to you. If you feel it's worth it, then please chuck a few pennies your way, just for your own sake, just for the sake of your own soul. If you don't, then keep it to yourself, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks' time for the next video. Thank you.